Yes, I want to do a little bit shorter video to drive home with some points why there's going to be a global collapse. Maybe not what other people are telling you, but I also read the mainstream news and they're dropping a lot of hints as to what's going on too. First off, I want to say that there's a thing called the velocity of money. In other words, when they print money, say for instance, or they make money, create money electronically, if they actually have a video on, I always put down on the links in the bottom in the information box about how local currencies actually saved the economy back in the Great Depression in Austria. It has nothing to do with the Austria School of Economics. It's just another experiment that was done. But when money gets into the hands of hardworking middle class people, it actually does a lot of good because, for instance, even if you gave the money to some wino and he went into a bar, he spent the money on booze, well, the bartender would pay the rent with that, or he'd pay the taxes to the city, or he'd pay the electric bill, or he'd pay more money to the distillery, or maybe for repairs on his bar or other capital improvements. The money goes around more than one time. The problem is now with the stimulus, the money has not been getting into the general economy. That's why when we're looking over the last years, we're seeing, oh, look, Ben Bernanke was going to do this, or Janet Yellen was going to do this, and nothing actually got into the real economy. It was just held by the biggest, too bigs to fail, I guess you would call them, and it's never gotten out into the general economy. And this is why we're having asset price inflation. Asset, in other words, the equities themselves. The equities themselves have far outpaced the inflation rate and the GDP growth, which are very nil. It's the first time in history in the United States stock market that there's such a divergence between the equities in this country and the combined inflation rate and GDP. Usually they're only like a divergence of 3%. And the reason this happened was because of the stimulus money. It's also caused some real estate inflation too in certain areas, especially in big commercial real estate, like where Donald Trump is invested. And actually, he could actually be in danger when if there's a major collapse because some of his real estate values can really come down. He's been doing very well because he was in the areas that were really hot for the real estate market. Now, this is not I can't call it a doom and gloom video. I don't want to. I don't play that game. I just want to state again. I am not affiliated with any people that are in the silver marketing crowd or the what do you call those people? The bullion dealers, or working for somebody that you know subscribe to my financial blog or whatever the hell it is. I'm not affiliated with any of that stuff. Now I could say yeah I'm doing this for fun, but the thing is that doesn't mean I don't necessarily know what I'm doing. I do or have worked in it, the accounting industry on pretty high levels on even controller services for over $1.5 billion project. Currently work in a CPA firm sometimes. I'm mainly doing this, but I work in a CPA firm sometimes. So I still got my one foot into accounting. Um, I'm actually putting this out because I'm a straight shooter. I mean, I do not like what some of the other silver people are putting out. It is, well, like I said, if I was actually to play this game as not being a straight shooter, I would just push for entertainment only. And, I do sometimes, change this up a little bit because financial stuff is pretty damn boring. I do change it up. But I just want to state the other thing is a lot of people that were too big to fail, if you want to call them that, the ones that got the stimulus money on the top, um, they're also holding a lot of dollars that have never gotten into the economy itself. Now the dollar has been doing incredibly well over the last few years. The dollar index was going up, up, up. It looks like it's getting time for it to roll over, and the dollar index going up also like that has made American industries less competitive throughout the world. That's another problem. And actually, these statistics came out in the first quarter of, and actually, there's been bad news coming out for a long period of time. The equities have been going up, but that's not the reason the equities are going up was strictly due to the stimulus money. not due to good economy. The PE ratio sucked. Everything was screwed up with the equities, generally speaking. Um, but as far as like where it's going, the dollar's been on a high for a long period of time. It's actually come home to roost where it's actually hurt American businesses. This first quarter of 2016 looks pretty damn horrible. A lot of reports, financial reporting that has come in. That's going to actually affect the stock market drastically. It should. It should. But again, the stock market is not. It's the first time in our stock market history that the stock market has actually been propped up by stimulus. But the other side of it is it's actually caused the dollars. It's also caused the dollar to be strong, which actually has hurt our exports. Now I know we do have an trade imbalance with imports and exports, but the thing is we still do have sizable amount of exports, and it has made American businesses far less competitive in the world having a strong dollar. See, this is actually what happened with the Federal Reserve policy. Strong dollar, keep the markets up, keep the money pumped up in, the financial structure on the too bigs to fail, and they in turn reinvest in premium assets. And those premium assets have gone up. None of that money has actually gone. That's why we haven't had any inflation. There has been inflation in premium asset prices, not inflation in consumer goods. But at one point in time, this money's got to go someplace, and it's gonna come around full circle. Now, if you look at the trend here, showing the U.S. dollar as a world global reserve currency on the bottom in blue, and you got the euro above it in green, and other is above it in orange. I don't know what the hell is in there. Then you have dark blue, which is pound sterling, and Japanese yen on the top. Now, before the euro, you had the Deutschmark, and you had the franc. The Deutschmark was represented in white, and the franc was represented in orange, well, red, I guess you would call it red, like a deep orange. Um, they're really, what I see is coming up is they're engineering a currency crisis here to combine all of these currencies into a global reserve currency. That has been, the utterance of most people in silver. Now, I'm going to tell you one thing. As far as what the elite are doing, you want to call them that, what they've always done is they look for real assets. Do not look so much at the dollars. Dollars, 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 dollars. They always look at things that can produce something, which is dollars, for them. If you look only at the end result, you're screwed. I'll tell you that right now. So I think, when I'm talking about silver, silver, yes, is a hard asset. Silver should do very well. We do not solely concentrate on silver. I'm going to tell you another thing you should really concentrate on is probably guns. Um, that's something else that could be a very good investment in times of crisis. Food would be number one, but also would be guns, and it would also be firepower, if you want to call it that. Food, firepower, and fuel. Fuel, actual fuel. But the problem is you really can't invest in actual fuel. Our 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 actually energy we actually have an energy crisis now going on right now because the way the things are going with the oil rigs in the United States, if that curve keeps following down that downward trend, we're going to have exactly zero productive oil rigs in the entire country by August 2016 if the trend keeps continuing. And I thought maybe the trend might have been busted because oil hit 40 there on the WTI for a while. And I figured, well, maybe it might go up a little more because there's a number of things going on, even with the Saudis and the Saudi family. They're having a lot of problems, which could create enough psychological tension to bring the prices up. But then now it's back down at 35. Um, I have to state this though. I think the only thing that's holding up the markets is the Federal Reserve policy. There's no doubt about it. But the people that are really going to get hurt most are the people with the pensions, the people with the 401ks, the retired people, and that money always goes somewhere. Actually, Warren Buffett himself admitted a while ago, 2 years ago, that it was mainly not in the U.S. dollar as a currency. 2 years ago. He's also for Hillary Clinton too, so he might be wrong about a few things. I don't know, but and I'll tell you something else too. That guy is actually dirty with a lot of stuff. He knew all about the Twin Towers coming down, 911, and everything else. He knew all about that. If you look back in 1993, and I'll tell you, maybe there's something coming up where that's going to be a major cover for the markets coming down. And If you look back in 1993, there was the first bomb that was of the World Trade Center. It didn't do much damage, but compared to what happened with the planes and the internal explosives, of course, which those buildings were brought down by internal charges in 2001, September 11th. But the next time, I think they're going to knock out a city block in New York. Maybe it might be around the financial district. Maybe when things are getting so damn bad, they're just going to pull the plug and say to hell with it, and everybody loses their money. In the meantime, these other people might have, they might be pulled out of the market, the very top elite, and invested someplace else. But what the reality situation is, what they always try to do is grab hard assets. Like I pointed out before, I guess I'm going lengthy on this anyway, but I got to repeat it. I pointed out before, a lot of people look at the commodities. I know they're very volatile; they go up and down, but there's a reason they're being driven up and down by, artificially through electronic trading. Is that it's actually drive out the people that are producing the commodities, drive them out of businesses, make them upside down on bank loans. Then they can buy up their, then they go bankrupt and they can buy up their businesses and all their sweat equity for pennies on a dollar. And then once all they're in and then they hire some of these people back to run the place for as when they don't as an employee versus an owner, and they're in the driver's seat. And once they're in the driver's seat on the top in Wall Street, you can manipulate the prices back up again. Now, I'm going to tell you one thing. It's like if you concentrate too much on the dollars, you're probably going to lose out because that's their game. And their game is rigged. The way you can really fight them is to concentrate on real goods. And not only is it silver, but it's food, firepower, and fuel. No doubt about that. You want to concentrate on that. Now, if you look at what happened in Argentina some years ago when they had their currency crisis, that's probably more a good example of what could possibly happen here in the United States versus what happened in Russia, because Russia always was a communist country. This place is getting a little more communistic, but it's still capitalistic. The world is going to be a very unsafe place. That's why I really don't want silver to go up too high, because I'd rather have things go fairly smooth as much as possible I'd rather have things 100% smooth and silver goes up to the $500 an ounce and no problem. But if it got up, if silver went to $90 an ounce, we're going to have major problems in society. And one of the things you're really going to need to do is protect yourself. There's no doubt about that. So the collapse deal, I know people saying, I see some of these videos some of these people put out with the funky music in the background and trying to scare people and all that. The collapse thing is reality because the equities have been held up by Federal Reserve policy. The money that has been printed, or the stimulus money, if you want to call it printed or whatever, or created, has been going into the top people in this country. They are not spending it in the economy, so there's no consumer inflation to speak of. What they have been doing is they've been taking that money, holding on to dollars for one. That's created a demand for dollars. And number two is they've been investing in premium assets. Some of those premium assets are the general equities in the United States. Some of those premium assets are real estate in commercial districts in major cities, like where Donald Trump lives at. Also, it could be in artwork. It could be in jewelry. It could also be in numismatics or classic cars and classic bikes. Another thing, some of the real high-end ones. So that's where inflation has been occurring, not in the consumer area, but in the high premium investor asset area, and that's fixing to come down. There's no doubt about it. They're backed into a corner, but their game is they're going to try to steal everything else from everybody that's around them. That's what they've always done, and it don't matter how many pennies they get at one time, as long as they're grabbing whatever they can grab. That's exactly the way these guys think that are in business. They think about this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, or 366 in this case, in election year. So I just want to say that, not only silver, just make sure you keep buying real assets. I know people are a little too, even if silver goes way up, these other real assets are going to go way up too. And that's because food prices are probably going to outprice the freaking price of silver. So let me just leave you with this thought that, you know, while people are overly concentrated, I don't want to say that there's a collapse and just play this like a fear monger. There's a reality behind the scenes why there is going to be something like that. And whenever there's a collapse, there's never a collapse where no economy goes on anything. The economy is still there. Where there's going to be a collapse is going to be in equities prices. I don't know if like it's going to go down in like 50% market correction, but I'm going to tell you, not only are the ones that are on YouTube that are talking about silver and all this kind of garbage talking about this, but they're talking about this in the mainstream media also. Do not be surprised if there's at least a 50% correction in the equities, which means there's going to be a hell of a lot of spending going on by the retired community group, that's for sure. And a lot of people with 401ks are going to get wiped out. But, it's not that you can't trust anything on paper, but on the other side of it is you can't trust anything whereby, um, well, I could say it's more like paper assets that really are not representing an industry that's really needed in the United States. If it's a paper asset that's representing an industry such as water, fresh water, utilities like that, or agricultural products and people that know how to produce high quality agricultural products, maybe like organics or whatever. Enough to people that know what they're doing. If you got an equity in that, you're probably okay because I think that is going to be something that's going to be doing very, very well in the future. But equities in who manufactures the thinnest laptop, or what's the latest electronic gadget that comes out, or equities in I don't know, Snapshot or something, Snapchat, whatever the hell it is out there. Those type of things I think are going to just go by the wayside. And a lot of people that grew up on this stuff, like the millennials, and actually, I could say I'm more guilty of growing up in this electronic world of convenience than people that lived through the Great Depression. In this reality situation is paper money and silver even is not going to put food on. It's not going to allow you to eat. And if there is a vast shortage of food, and this could very well be because I talked about climate is actually changing for the colder, and we're going into a mini ice age. That's a fact. I mean, you're not going to be able to freaking refute it. In a couple of years, you're going to see what the hell I'm talking about. This last winter was a little pretty warm because of El Nino, but if you look on the other side of the world, there's been record snows, or first time ever snows, of like a foot of snow 200 miles south of Hanoi in south of Hanoi in Vietnam, where they never got snow, killed off all the crops. Accumulations of snow in Okinawa, Japan, where they never ever had snow. Snow in Kuwait, where they've never ever had snow, which means a greatly shortened growing season and a lot of crop failures. So, if there's a shortage of food, even if you got a lot of silver, it's going to be a problem. Your number one bet, like I said, is food, firepower, and fuel. If you have energy requirements, which could be a wood burning stove, and you have your weapons to protect yourself, and you have a way to grow your own food or get your own food through hunting or whatever, you're far better off actually than even the silver. But silver is still going to be it always has been a global reserve currency in a way, because there's always been a spot market out there, even though the spot market is rigged. And I went over that before because there's been a lot of lawsuits about the rigging of the of the spot markets, even oil and other commodities, since 2000. Ongoing lawsuits, even brought about by the former head of the New York Mercantile Exchange. But they're not going anywhere. But at one point in time, it may be silver's going to be one price on the spot market, and it's going to be another price somewhere else in the real world. Just like in Venezuela with the Bolivar versus the U.S. dollar. In Venezuela, officially, the Bolivar is worth, not that many, you can't get that many dollars with it. But in reality, if you go out on the market anywhere, a few dollars will buy you a whole pile of bolivars. And, that's the reality situation. Reality has a way of catching up with things. And actually, it's going to have a way of catching up with the elite. But if you are one of these people that think you're going to just sit back and look at the dollars, 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 and look at the computer screen that way, you're not gonna thrive and survive. And that's why my channel does not strictly focus in on the numbers completely. I've realized this many times over, and I realized how the bean counters, being that I was one, or I am one still, but it's not the whole situation. It's never the whole situation. There's been a lot of stories. I know I'm going lengthy, and I didn't expect to, but to give you an example, um, there's always people that can do something and can make things work, and there's people that can talk like they can make things work. Here's a good example. In the 1930s, and this is related to the Marine Corps and the Higgins boat and the amphibious landing craft that they used for the beaches, the beachheads. In the 1930s, the Department of Navy shipbuilding took over 10 years to build a amphibious landing craft for the Navy and the Marine Corps, right? Uh, who actually built the Higgins boat, he actually was the one that was building the boats for the rum runners on the Mississippi Delta flats, and he went ahead and built a boat in 72 hours without plans, just from memory, working out of his head, having his workers work throughout the clock in 72 hours so he could get it in time to compete against the Navy's um, rendition that took over 10 years to be the amphibious landing craft. The Higgins boat that took 72 hours by an entrepreneur performed flawlessly, even in rough seas. Made it to the beachhead and back. We got it through the rough surf, no problem. It'll work like a charm. The one that was the Navy shipbuilding that took 10 years, and they talk all the cute words, right? Oh, they talk nice. Oh, they talk cute. They got all the phrases, and they're copying each other's big words and all this kind of shit. That's why I refuse to talk like that. And guess what? Their ship not only could it not get through the heavy surf, it almost freaking sunk out in the regular in the regular ocean, in the ocean where the water was nowhere near as rough, without getting through where the breakers were. So guess what they went through? That was 10 years of freaking paying some bureaucrat for that bullshit. So I just want to tell you though, but it's like you gotta really get your hands dirty to freaking survive, and that's what it's gonna come down to. So just remember that even when we have a so-called collapse, it's a numbers collapse. If you got food, firepower, and fuel, you can get all the rest. You can get your building materials. You can freaking hang on to you can repair your home. You can do whatever you got to do. You can do everything you need to do. You got food, firepower, and fuel. Just remember that. And silver is a backup to the backup. And as of right now, silver pretty much can be considered a global reserve currency. There isn't one country in the world that doesn't know what the hell silver is, and what they all know it has worth. You can always exchange silver for whatever currency there is in the world, just by it basically it's recognized globally. And no matter what crap they come up with as far as EFT, electronic currency, or a new paper currency, it's still going to have some kind of assignment to how many denominations of that currency is going to be to silver. And my bet is it's going to look very favorable for silver. So hang on to that stuff, but don't fully concentrate on silver, because that's when you get tunnel vision and you're setting yourself up for a problem. Because as anything, silver, oil, copper, any commodity, whether it's wheat, gold, you know, coffee, whatever, all commodities are high risk, high reward. That is by definition. That's how they are. So, went lengthy on this, but I just want to really drill it home about to keep things in perspective and don't tunnel vision on silver all the time in the latest conspiracies. There is no there is no way out that these guys are gonna you know well they're doing this by design. They're collapsing the dollar by design. There's no doubt about it. But when they collapse the dollar by design, they're going to do more than that. You're going to try to grab real land, real assets, real people's businesses, just like they're doing in the oil industry. You want to make sure you got everything else in line besides just some Chinese coins. No doubt about that.